Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. We're going to dive straight back into the playthrough for Etherfields as part of this Kickstarter preview, and I really hope this is helping you make an informed decision on the game and see how this thing flows and operates. And one thing to mention is that there were two major decisions thrown back at you guys to shape how this playthrough is going to unfold. The first huge decision at the end of part number 2 was which way we're going to go, because we have the availability to go to the library underground, which is located to the right of us, or we could go to the mill, which is in the swamp over here to the left of us. And I left a voting mechanism in the last video, and when I looked at the tally prior to turning this camera on and moving into this part number 3, and I kid you not, the percentages on this are insanely close. 49% was actually in favor of going to the mill, 51% for the library. Like, that is, we're talking a couple votes off from being a dead even split, but there was a difference, and so you guys have decided overall to choose the library. So that's where we're going to be heading into this particular part number 3. Now, there was another major decision which I gave you guys at the end of the last episode, and that had to do with 3 cards that we're able to purchase as a result of being successful from the prologue, and only because of that. When we landed in this awakening space after we came out of that scene from the prologue, it doesn't state you get to buy cards, but the actual success area of the prologue states that you do. So we pulled 3 cards, which you guys saw at the end of the last video. So with this, we have 3 card options. They each cost an ether, which is really lucky because some of them could have costed 2, which would have definitely limited the amount we could have purchased if we had gone after the big ticket ether cards. But we were able to pick up 2 cards here, which could really help shape our deck and give us options in the future. What's even cooler is they all have the ability to be in active slots, because none of them are a rapid card. They don't have that white border up in the top left hand corner. Plus the resources are nice and heavy and the abilities on the cards are useful. But I had to come down to a decision on 2 of them, and the 2 that I've chosen based on your feedback, rationale, and strategy is going to be very long hands and analysis. These are the 2 I'm going to be paying for and adding into my, you would think, deck, but actually the rules state that you actually add these cards straight into your hand. The next decision that was not as major as adding cards into the deck and not as major as choosing where we're going to go, but really would be a huge choice if you were playing this game in front of you, is deciding which mask you want to don moving into the next part of your playthrough. So yes, it would be hugely important, but for the purposes of this Kickstarter preview and showing how the game plays, the majority of individuals in the comments section mentioned that they'd like to see the ghost mask remain. Now, I would love to show you guys the wisdom mask as well, but it's also kind of a bonus not to spoil that, as again, these abilities really do change up your character in a really interesting way. So I'm going to leave this as a secret, and honestly, the ghost has been extremely useful throughout the prior prologue scene. I really see it coming in handy moving into the library, so we're going to stick with this ability going forward. Now, this is the first time that we've ever actually been moving around or beginning to move on the world map. So it's worth talking with some of the icons that you're seeing here, because you guys may not be familiar with everything that's on these boards, and honestly, there is quite a bit going on. Now, we'll talk more about them in depth when we hit them, because you'll actually see them in action. We probably won't see every single different type of icon in action, but I can at least explain at a high level what each of them are. So here is a handful of icons on screen. Let's talk about them really quick, high level. So this one right here is an exclamation mark, but more importantly has a red circle around it. Whenever you see a red circle around an icon, it means it's required, meaning when you land in that particular location, you have to do whatever it says in the center. So in this case, an exclamation mark there requires you to pull the top random encounter card or tile off of the deck. Remember that deck that we set up way earlier on? Well, that's when this would get pulled and a random event would essentially happen. You'd have to resolve that and deal with it. Now, to the left of it here, we've got one that's red circled but has a question mark in the middle. That one's for the Fate deck. So you'll go ahead and grab a Fate card, which is a standard playing card, flip that and see what happens. There's other ones here on this as well. Some of them are straight up like this, change items. This would just optionally allow you to change your items out. Remember, we placed those items in the item slots earlier on. Everyone was happy with strategic plan, flashlight, and blue car, so we won't be changing those. What's really cool to note though is that blue car in the world map view becomes a lot more useful, because that is where the blue car is used to help avoid nasty things that can happen. So we will be using that as we move through the world map to avoid things that we may not want to encounter. But in a space like this, this where it's a white outline, you are optionally allowed to change items, and it's your choice. It's not required, in other words. So this one right here with the green circle inside, the green circle represents resting. So when you get into a space like that, every character in the game, in my case just the one, can unflip a card, meaning you can take a card that's flipped down, which the game has forced upon you, and you can flip that back up. We're talking about cards in your active area, of course. Or you can reshuffle your deck together, meaning take your discard pile and your chest pile, shuffle them together. Honestly, for me, that's the best thing to do because my decks right now are 50-50 split across the two different piles. So I don't want to run out of cards in my chest area because I'll take a pain, which I don't want. The other option, if you land here, because you can do one of these three things, is to go ahead and buy cards. So you can buy cards, you can reshuffle your deck, or you can unflip one card. You can only do one of those. You have to pick which one you want to do. But those are a great spot to land. And again, it's optional because maybe you don't need to do any of that. Another important icon in the game here is this one right in the middle of the screen. This is a railway station and has absolutely no use whatsoever until you discover a wisdom card later on in the game. Maybe, I don't know when it's actually going to pop up, that has the word railway on it. And as of right now, the only wisdom card that I've gained so far is the one about signs. Remember the one that talked about all the little pictures where we could flip them over if we happen to find them hiding amongst all the scenes that we move through? Well, I have to find this wisdom card called Railway to unlock the ability to make use of this particular spot. And once I do, that card will describe how I can use it. But you can tell just from the circle alone, it's optional. It won't be something you're forced to do. Usually anything optional in this game is typically something you want to do, like resting, healing, going into a scene, for instance, that potentially has a key, which is an area where you need to find a key to get into a closed scene to kind of finish a chapter. You've got the rest areas, which are optional. So typically white circled areas are really good. Now, there are other different spaces on the world map that actually won't have any abilities or anything special happening with them until cards eventually tell you that they do. So things like prison, for instance, you'd be wondering, well, if I move in there, do I just immediately lose turn or time or something? No, it has no effect whatsoever until the game gives it an effect. So really, it's a dead space. But you can see with this one, again, it's outlined in white. So it'll be really interesting to see how that actually changes things later on when it becomes something of essence. So what we can see here is if we're trying to trek our way to this particular scene right here, because we've chosen the library located in the underground area, we have to follow arrows. And these arrows are depicted right on the actual world map. Very easy to see what our direction is. But once we get to certain forks in the road, we have decisions to make as to which path we want to take based on what things we want to encounter along the way. There is no game effects in the prototype that I currently have that allow me to skip any further than just one step ahead every time, meaning everything you run into, you're going to have to encounter unless it's optional, white circled. If it's red circle, you got to do it. So in this particular case, maybe an ability on one of the masks is to allow you to move more than one space and hop some things. Who knows? But I do know that I do have a blue car, which I talked about earlier, and this blue car can come in really handy. And you guys chose to actually have this equipped as an item, and it says you may use this item after drawing an encounter on the world map. So there we go. That's going to come in super handy just from that statement alone. We are allowed to roll a fate die once per encounter, and each character will either gain pain if we roll a 1, and we can potentially lose the blue car. We can just thematically think about the car basically breaking down on us and just not panning out in order to drive away. Or we get a 2 to 3 and there's 0 effects, so the car doesn't help us at all. The whatever it is that comes after us still affects us. Or we get a 4 to 6 and we get saved and we can discard the encounter and drive straight past it, which is huge. So if you're trying to speedily get somewhere, this could be really, really useful. So wouldn't you know it, the very first thing that we have to do, and we literally have absolutely no choice whatsoever, because from this awakening area, the only things we could do, and we can't even go to this railroad right here. You can see a railroad later on, if it ever becomes unlocked, would allow you to get there likely from another railroad. So it'll probably allow you to move from something like this to here, which then would allow you to move from here to the awakening spot and be able to heal your damage, change your items, and do a whole bunch of stuff. So that could be a useful thing way later on in the game. Right now, we can't even move to it because the arrow doesn't point out that way, but we can head this way trying to head to the underground. So let's go ahead and move one space to here, and we pulled the card Passage. This says to discard 1 power, which we don't have, or 1 ether to relocate the team to the chosen space of this tile. Now that would actually be really useful, and there we go as an example of how we could find a way to escape through or or past a bunch of nasty things we might have to move through, like random encounters, to kind of jump ahead a little bit. So we did find a passage, but sadly we can't use it because we don't have the ether to spend or the power to discard. So we're going to continue our journey here, which is going to force us into a random encounter space. And we got some fear specters coming through the walls at us. We're currently in the city tile, and it makes real thematic sense that these fear specters will be coming at us right now before we reach the underground area. They're coming through the walls, over the bookshelves at us. It's extremely creepy artwork, looks really cool. And it also shows these 3 little silver nodes in the top right-hand corner, which mean 2 things. First off, if there are any up there, it means we automatically have to go to the random encounter map, meaning we're leaving the world map that we were seeing earlier and moving to a random encounter one, which means more of an in-depth, gritty battle with miniatures, essentially. So, and the other thing that those nodes mean is how many of those fear specters are going to be there battling us. So we're going to have 3 of them showing up trying to take a bite out of us, and their movement speed when they get a dash roll and the movement die will be 3. In order to kill them, we need to put 3 injuries on them, or we can actually have a conversation, get 3 of those conversation or talk cubes or word cubes onto these fear specters, and we can kill one of them away. If we go ahead and actually kill all of them, we get 2 bonuses here. One is we can heal 1 injury, essentially, from our character, or in this case, pain, because that's what our characters take is pain. The enemies take injuries. Similar terminology there either way. And then we have the second one here. It says you may buy new cards. So that's super handy because of this really cool ability down below here that says, not much in really an ability, but more so a plus to actually taking them down. But every time we go ahead and kill one of these fear specters, we're going to gain, or whichever character does, which happens to be the only one I'm playing, will gain an ether. So at best I can get 3 ether, and then once they're all gone, I can buy cards, which is really handy. So this could be a really worthwhile random encounter. And of course the AI is all broken out here, as you can see. That's pretty much the rundown of a random encounter. It does follow very similar structure to the huge entity that we saw at the end of part number 2. So now we're going to go ahead and break down the world map and set up the random encounter map. So here is a look at the random encounters map, which is laid out here in the prototype. Again, there could be multiple random encounters in the final product. This is the one that's available in the prototype, 4 tiles in size, and then we've got the fear specters here on the right. So the first thing you're going to do is place your characters into this random encounters tile setup. You'll notice that there are these S icons all over the map here. So one's here, one is here, one's here, and one's here. Because if you're playing with 4 characters, you're all going to pop in on 4 different locations. You're not going to be close together. So let's talk about some of the icons here inside this random encounters map so that you guys understand what we're looking at in terms of strategy here. So first off, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here, we have what's a swamp icon, and this icon doesn't have any meaning at all unless a card or tile gives them meaning, but it is a swamp icon. Again, that might be referenced to cards you're using in your deck based on cards you purchased from the action pool, all that kind of stuff. But you'll also notice where it's located is important as well. If it's in the bottom left-hand corner of a particular area here, it's just for this one spot right here. If this icon was sitting right in the center, it would mean that all 4 of these spots are considered to be swamp icon spots. Or if it's sitting right on a line between 2 different slots, it means those 2 slots are swamp. So in this case, it's just the one, and you can see the water on the far left-hand side. Now also in this tile, there are stair icons all over the place here. And again, similar to the terrain symbols, the stairs are going to have no meaning unless, of course, something is revealed that gives them meaning. So once that happens and there's specific rules around it, you will find out more about what those do. You'll also notice in this map that there are 4 of those icons for the entities to come into play. So we currently have 3 of them coming to play. The max you could ever have is 4. And if you would for some reason have more than 4 entities come into play than what's currently already in the game board, you just wouldn't add them in. Now this icon is a drawing bonus, and this particular one says +1. So in the phase of drawing cards into your hand, which is at the beginning of your player turn, you may, if you're sitting in this location here, and you don't have to, you can draw that many extra cards into your hand. This is important because it talks about the number of turns that we actually have in this random encounter, which is 4. And you would think, being a solo player, you might gain additional turns, as I talked about earlier with open and closed scenes, but this is not considered either of those. And because of that, we don't gain additional turns. It still stays capped to 4 here. So we have 4 turns to complete this. So you can also see at the bottom here, it says the trace of ether. If all 3 traces are marked, each character gains an ether, then you get to unmark. So it's just another way within the random encounter, kind of like almost a mini game, while you're trying to deal with all the entities and what they throw at you and what you could potentially gain from them, as to how you could gain some extra ether on the side. Again, it'll be tough to do, but you can see this is the check you'll be doing in 3 different spots, including this one, which says you're going to be doing 3, and it has that 3-headed person, which we know means the number of characters. So 3 times 1 is 3 contact, meaning 3 green, and we're able to put a universal marker right here, and that gets us moving towards the number of ether. And we're kind of tracing the ether in this random encounter to be able to create a single one that we can keep for ourselves. So that is one way we can do it. There's also other different spots on these random encounters to interact with as well. Now, we know we have 4 turns to do what we need to do in this random encounter, but we also know, even though we're trying to kill as many fear specters as possible, we might want to know the way out of this thing, and this is exactly how you can get out. So if you can get back to this space here, you can use 8 false or 8 yellow resources in order to run away from this encounter back to the world map, but you have to suffer some pain on the way out the door. The other thing to mention here is you can see a night icon right in the middle here, so this means all 4 of these location tiles here, these 4 spaces or quadrants in this tile, are all considered in night. And really, at the end of the day, when I zoom out here, the whole right hand side of this random encounter is in night. The other left side is not. It is important to note that this red barrier here not only blocks your movement, but also blocks ranged for attacks. So that's really important when trying to figure out how you want to stage your random encounter. So for me, I'm going to have my character come in this corner. The reason being, if I want to ditch and get out of here, I can go right here, spend what I need, and just leave. But the plus side is I'm far enough away from the one that's kind of segregated off into its own area here by all these red bordered walls. So if I put one of the entities up here, one of these fear specters, then it takes some time before it's actually going to come around the corner and up the stairs to me, meaning that I can deal with the other 2. And I'm not going to put both of them in the same spot right next to me. I'll put one further back because I know they're going to come charging at me based on their AI here. It says they're going to do a lot of movement, so they'll probably reach me fairly quick anyway, but this is a good strategy to kind of thin the herd, keep them separated, and hopefully be able to take them out one at a time, while also giving me the availability to jump out of this area if I really get into trouble. So I went ahead and staged the deck, and wouldn't you know it, the very first one that shows up is going to be 1. So that pip number is what I'm going to use the blue cube, which is this right here, as you saw from a prior video. We're going to place that on the Fear Spectre's AI so we know exactly what it's doing. We'll go back to its cards, you guys can see that. But the other ability that's going to trigger as well during this upcoming round for them is that the entity's action range is going to be increased by 1, meaning that they can actually hit me from further distance, which is really unfortunate. Okay, so we have the new entity AI set up here, and it's for this one in the number 1 slot. Unfortunately, it's actually a pretty tough one. It says each character on a night space or in range 2 is going to suffer 1 pain. So that's not good. And then it says roll the movement die not once, but twice. So that's also pretty vicious. So we have to deal with all of that, plus the fact that we have a couple items which can and can't help us. So I want to talk about those right now because we went ahead and I didn't actually switch anything out yet, and sadly the strategic plan that I have right now is going to be really good when we finally actually make it to the scene that we're heading towards, but in a random encounter will give us no additional benefit card drawing wise. So we know this isn't going to be any help for us. The flashlight, on the other hand, that you guys basically set up with me earlier is definitely going to be a help, because we can go ahead for 2 contact, roll the fate die, and we can ignore darkness on our space this turn, but then we got to remove the item. So, you know, if we don't want that to kind of hurt us, and if we get a 2 to 6, we ignore the darkness on your space's turn and we get to keep the card. So it's kind of like one of those, it's really thematic that way, because it's like almost the battery's dying and you have to ditch the flashlight with the first one, but it worked for like a few seconds, or you just keep on going and hope that the batteries don't die, but things are looking good. So that's pretty cool. We'll definitely be able to make use of the flashlight. The blue card would have made perfect sense to use earlier, but as I mentioned, I didn't want to use the blue card in order to avoid this encounter, because I wanted to show you guys what a random encounter entails. But going forward, once we get through this one, I'm going to start using it like you normally would if you were actively trying to avoid bad things happening. So we are ready to begin the very first turn. We're going to head to our character board here, where we know we have 2 cards in hand going into this one, as well as a regrouping card in the active slot. We have these 2 cards, which we bought, and we are definitely going to try to make use of them as much as we can. So let's go to our deck here, and we'll be able to pull up to 3 more cards for a full total hand of 5. So hoping that I get the cards that I need here to make life easy for me. So the first one we got here is Peeving. The next one, that's combat. Actually, this is great, a whole bunch of combat, which is kind of what we need to really take out these fear specters. Oh my gosh, that's an insane amount. That's so good. Okay, so all of those combined with this, actually, now that I'm looking at that, regrouping's really going to be able to be something we should use for its drawing of the X red cards. So, you know, as many cards that have the ability that are not rapid to be placed in the active slots, I could load this area up with 2 of the reds, meaning that when I use this regrouping, I can draw 3 cards from the top of my deck this turn. But I have to roll a fate die, and if I get a 1 to 4, I take a pain, and I have to flip this card. And we could also potentially use a specialist ability to unflip it later. So there's a lot going on here now that we've got some cool cards moving amongst our deck. So I'm going to go ahead and use Memory of in the active slot, and that's going to work nicely. I'm also going to put Peeving in this active slot as well. So we have 3 cards in here now, and all of them are red. I do have another red card, but this one's a rapid action card, so I cannot place this in an active slot because it has the white border in the top left. So that does not work. But what works right now is I can go ahead and use Regrouping. The bottom action right here says draw X amount of cards. And what it means by that is draw the number of cards that are sitting in your active card area that match red. And I have 3. It includes the card we're talking about using as well. So I get to draw 3 cards from here, and then I roll the fate die, a 1 to a 4, we get a pain, and then we have to flip the card. Otherwise, we're okay. So here's the first card off the top. We got some movement, so that's pretty good. Rapid movement card. More rapid movement, that's never bad. So we got to move around quite a bit. And look at that, combat and movement. Not bad at all. So those go into my hand, along with everything else that I have going here. And what I'm going to do next is this roll of the fate die, which I'm not looking forward to too much. So we're going to go ahead here, roll the 6-sided die, and hope that we don't land a 1 to a 4. Oh, we got a 1. So that is going to make us suffer 1 pain for what we just did, and this card will flip over, meaning that we don't have access to it right now. We can try to unflip it using our specialist ability, because it is sticking straight up at us. By using 2 green contact, we can actually flip it back over, and that could be useful, because we could try and use it again, which would be pretty awesome. But as you can see from my current stack of cards, don't have too much green going on, lots of movement, lots of combat. I think we need to move towards one of these fear specters and try to take at least one of them out. I'm really excited for this next move, actually, so I'm not going to go back to the game board or the random encounter map just yet, because I want to show you guys what I've got cooking with all of these cards I've got right now. So first off, let's move 3 of these to the side, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add Analysis as an active card in here as well. And this is a card that you guys chose that I should have gone ahead and picked up, which I did, and is now part of my deck. And it says right here, not only can we use it for 2 false, but we can also spend 4 false, and from now on, entities will suffer an injury more from each attack, dealing at least 2 injuries. So that's pretty cool, and also very big. So we need to spend the false in order to get that benefit. It becomes a passive ability we always have, so long as it's sitting right here. So I'm going to go ahead with the crazy amount of false that I just gained and use Very Long Hands for 2 and this rapid card for 2 in order to get that 4. Which will allow me to take a universal marker and place it here, meaning that this is now active. So whenever I do at least 2 injuries worth of damage to these entities or fear specters, we get the 3rd one for free, and that's perfect because we need 3 to kill just one of them. So now we need to find a way to build up Wrath, which we have quite a bit of, 3 in hand and 3 on the table, which is perfect based on an attack here. You can see each attack is 3 Wrath to get 1 injury at range 1. And we even have in the mix some movement. Now, the fun part is going to be, can we get close enough to actually make this work this turn, or do we have to wait one turn in order to try this on the next turn? Now, I don't know if I'll be able to pull this off, but I'm sure going to try. So we're back to the random encounter map, and there's a couple things I want to pinpoint here. The biggest one is range and attacking. So first off, when we're trying to get close to these things, or these things are trying to get close to us to do pain or injuries, in this particular case, you're going to want to know how range works. So essentially, my attack can do for 3 wrath resources 1 injury at a range of 1. A range of 1 is from where my guy currently stands to here, or from here to here. So I can only target these 2 spaces currently. I cannot target the diagonal space. However, if I ever get additional range through cards or active cards that are currently up for abilities, like for instance the card that we actually added to our deck but is now in the discard, sadly, called Very Long Hands. This one here says that we can actually increase our range on our attacks, and it's for all characters, but we're only controlling the one, by every single yellow card in your active area. Of course, you have to pay the 6 in order to get that passive ability, but still, that's an example of how you can increase the range, and there's other ways to do that too. For now, I have to get closer to these things to actually make an attack. So to sum up range as well as movement, it's all orthogonal. That's how it's actually drawn out on the map. So if I wanted to actually target this particular Fear Spectre, I'd have to go 1, 2, 3. I'd have to have a range of 3 to actually hit the thing. And the same thing for the Fear Spectre coming back towards me. Nothing can be attacked diagonal unless, of course, a card or some ability states otherwise. But the rules state no diagonal on the range or the movement. And you know what? I was going to throw the towel in on my turn, but I've changed my mind. I really want to try the luck die to see if I can get the resource, the extra resource I need in movement to get to where I need to be to make a big attack, which I do have against this particular guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pay up the resource for the start of the action, as you always have to do. So I am going ahead and trying to do a move action. I need 2 movement to get to where I want to go. So I'm hoping to get 1. Now on this 6-sided die, I could either end up with a 2, I could end up with a 1, or I could end up with a 3. All those are good. That means I get that many additional resources, which would be fantastic. The rest are all either fail or injury, or I should say pain and other bad things that could happen to me. So it's a 50-50 split, but I'm hoping I get enough. I really just need the 1 extra to get me to here, so I'm adjacent for my attacks. I just unload all of my wrath on them and we'll be able to wipe them out. So it really hinges on this die. So cross your fingers, here it goes. Oh, yes, that worked out perfect. Okay, so, well, that was flawless. So if I had screwed that up, there was potential I could have lost that movement too. So that worked out beautifully. So now I'm gonna be able to go ahead and go 1, 2, and I'm going to go ahead and attack him now. I'm going to discard these 2 as well as the 2 active cards I have in my slot, active slots, Peeving and Memory of. This is a total of 6 Wrath going in. So that is going to generate 2 injury tokens on this Fear Spectre. And then because of the analysis card that says when we get at least 2 injuries, they suffer an additional injury thanks to setting that up. This guy is dead. We've killed off 1 already in the first turn, which is fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and throw all these cards here in the discard pile. But down below here, it says, or I shouldn't say it's not there, it's actually over here on this, on the Spectre card itself. It says when a character kills any Fear Spectre, this character gains Ether. So we just gained 1 Ether for that kill. So that was absolutely worth it. Again, it's going to help us out with purchasing cards in the future. And now I can happily end my turn. So as we know, the AI is on this pip right here. Number 1, it says each character on a darkness space or in range 2 is going to take a pain. So we are in that darkness space. So I'm going to go ahead and grab 1 pain gem. That's going to go on my character, unfortunately. So we have a total of 2 of those. If we get 7, we die. So that's not good. All right, so it's time to roll that die and see how things go. And we're going to roll a movement die for each of the entities, and each of them are going to be rolled twice. So we'll start off here with this guy, and we'll roll it off, see what we get. All right, so that first one is a move the entity to the nearest character by just a single space. It's actually one of the better ones we want because it keeps him far away. Roll again because it does say roll the movement die twice, and it's for each one. Oh, this could be different. This is a move the entity to the nearest character by as many spaces as the movement attribute. Because it's a dashed movement attribute or dashed arrow, it matches this dashed arrow, so it means it moves 3, which means it's going to get right up to us. We can choose wherever we want to place it, so I'm going to probably go ahead and likely put it over here, I think. And that's as close as it can get. The other thing that the plus allows it to do is it can roll the movement die again, but in this particular case, it's already so close, it doesn't need to, so it doesn't gain that additional advantage. Now we'll go for the 2 rolls on this guy way up here in the top left-hand corner. They're closing in on me. This one rolled right off camera, but it's another dash, so this thing's gonna come flying at me. 1, 2, 3, and just like that, it's right on top of me coming up the stairs. So I'm fully surrounded now going into next turn, and I already took 1 pain just from the darkness alone, but you can see here that there's other abilities here on the AI that if I'm within range of these guys, they're going to start hitting me big time. So I really got to generate some more wrath and take them out. Or the other option is run as fast as humanly possible out of this encounter. So killing them is definitely an option. With injuries, we get 3 of them. It takes 1 out, as we've seen. We can run into the scenario if we think we're running out of time, or we can also talk to them using our contact, and we can actually remove them or kill them that way as well. You'll notice underneath of both of those particular requirements for killing them, there's a reward here that's in addition to the ether that's at the bottom of this card, and this says heal 1 from each character. So I actually get to heal 1 of the pain that I got hit with earlier. So that gets removed. Fantastic. And again, it would have been better to do that the second that it happened, but I am still showing this right now just so you guys are aware. But the coolest thing is it also says you may buy new cards, and that you may buy new cards triggers at the exact same time as when you gain that 1 ether, meaning we can pull 3 action cards from the top of the deck. So here are the 3 cards I could purchase, but the only one I can afford is Flashback. It's the only one that actually has 1 ether. And just so you guys are aware, whenever these buy card options come out of nowhere and you can do them, you don't have to. They do give you the ability to actually see all 3 cards that come out, and you can choose to buy something or not. So I really, if I don't want Flashback, I don't have to take it. This card would give me contact in my hand, which is nice. Not a lot of it in terms of a resource, but it does say down here, if I spend 6 of it, I can mark this, I get a passive ability. It says, if marked, discard this card to put 1 top card from discard pile on top of your chest, which is pretty good if you're trying to pull something from your discard pile back into your deck immediately. At this particular point, I don't think it's exactly what I want, although I could see how it's useful. I might hold my ether to try to get something a little more powerful. You can see these 2 over here. This is the first time I think we've seen a 3 ether card. That one's pretty crazy. That would be fantastic to pick up, but I just don't have the ether to actually buy that one. So it's worth noting that the entities did have an action range, which is increased by 1, but because there was no attacks from range, this did not matter or impact us at all. It could in the future, but this card's going away anyway, and a new one is being revealed. This one said, oh wow, we're actually staying in the 1 position still. It says additional movement roll before entity's action. All right, here we go. So we get to draw up cards. I'm going to take all 5 of them because I don't have any in my hand. So here we go. Contact and movement. We got a lot more contact. Looks like we could be talking our ways out of this one. Got some wrath. Not bad. Ooh, there's the pocket ladder. That's definitely getting up there. Okay. Oh yeah, now we're empty. We're depleted. So if you are about to draw a card from the chest, but the deck is depleted, you suffer a wound or discard an ether. Oh, tough call. I don't really want to get rid of my ether yet, so I think I will take the pain, which is unfortunate, getting that back. And then we can go ahead and reshuffle this, and we'll be drawing our final card. All right, wish me luck here. Hopefully this pans out for me. We got Searcher. Okay, so that is going to be interesting for sure. Now, we've got a lot going on here. We've got, we got a ton of, this could actually work pretty good. If we could have gotten 2 more contact, we could have been able to actually talk to one of them enough to actually kill it by just speaking some nasty words to it, which would have been perfect. All right, so I thought about how I'm going to actually try to make this work, and to be totally honest, this is really sketchy. I could potentially just wait until next turn to build up enough cards. I could take 2 of the cards I have in my hand that I could actually put in the active slots here to get them out of my hand, kind of getting me ready to use a ton of contact and communicate with this entity, because you can see I have 7. I need 9 in order to actually kill it with just pure communication and speaking to it. So I'm really close. I could potentially do a really risky maneuver by ditching analysis for 2 resources and 1 yellow in order to draw 1 card from the top of the deck and hope that it pans out to be the one I want. But that seems to be a huge risk, being that I'm tossing 1 green contact just from doing it alone, meaning I have to get a 2 or a 3. I'd have to actually get a 3 just to make it even worthwhile doing. So it just doesn't make any sense. The only other thing I could do is roll the luck die, but I'm terrified to do that because I need to get a 2 or a 3, and my odds are just 33%. And even worse, when I'm trying to communicate to these entities, if I fail, if I happen to land a blank side, which there's 2 of them, or I land this side here, I not only get a pain for that one, but in all 3 cases, I lose every single resource I committed, as I've mentioned in the past. And losing this many, though, would be pretty hard to come back from. So I don't know if I'm ready to risk that type of a turn just yet. Maybe when we get down to that last turn, I will. So for now, what I'm going to do is going to hold off on being risky there, and I'm just going to go ahead and put these 2 cards in my active slot, Searcher and Pocket Ladder. Both of them. This one here does say you can spend 2 false, and you may use your contact as false this turn, but that's really not going to help me. I'm really just kind of holding the space, or holding these out of my hand. I'm trying to get them out of my hand so I can draw more cards into my hand next turn, and I also have 4 resources, what I'm trying to kind of bundle up there. I don't see any reason to necessarily flip this back over yet. This is the one that has some Wrath on it, but we're not trying to build up towards Wrath anytime soon. I have no red cards in here, so there's no point in wasting time flipping that one over. So that's pretty much that. That's about all I can do this turn. I might be sitting still and seeing what the Fear Specters do, although I know what's coming. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to be rolling an additional movement die thanks to the turn counter, but it won't matter because they're right next to me, so we can dive straight into their AI. Now, this next piece of information has to do with movement into your space. The entities can actually enter your square, and that's where I made one mistake with movement in the prior clip there of the first turn. So what happened was we had this entity here, and it rolled and landed its 3 movement. So I moved it 1, 2, 3, and I stopped it here because all of its attacks could actually do it from here within range 1. But actually, we roll the die again, it can still enter the space that I'm currently in. So we'll roll the die, and sure enough, that's another 3, so he would have easily been in here. That's okay because it doesn't actually impact gameplay at all, but it is important positionally on the map anyway. Next, we have this one here that originally was here. First, it rolled and got 1 space of movement, and then it rolled and it got the full dash movement of 3, which would have put, and I went 1, 2, and I stopped here. The third one should have put it in here, and then there'd be no more need to roll the movement die. So again, we run into the exact same thing. We hit the turn counter card, which is currently active right now, and it does state right on it, additional movement roll before the entity's action. So right now, we would roll the die. Whenever the entities are in the same space as the character they're going after, the nearest character, they don't move at all. So this roll doesn't take any effect whatsoever, but man, would that get them across the board really fast in a scene if they were coming after you. So that's the movement. We then move down here and we take a look. Are they within range 2? And am I in a space with darkness? Well, I'm not in a space with darkness, but they are within range 2. So I am going to take a pain. This is going to give me my 3rd pain marker, unfortunately. And then they're going to roll for movement again, but they won't. They normally would roll twice. Each of them would, but they're already in my space, so no movement. And the next turn we've got coming towards us is a 2. This is going to change things up. It says additional movement roll before entities action. So these are just, they're pumping the entities towards us. So we were in a scene, like I was mentioning before, this would be a little crazy. And we'll move our marker on the Fear Specters down here. Finally, we're seeing something a little different with these guys. They're going to roll the movement die, then each character in range 1 is going to suffer a hit or a pain. That's not good. So that's really going to start to mount now because I'm going to get 2 hits for each one. So this is really the time to start knocking these guys out. And I thankfully get to go first. So let's go back to our player board, draw up our hand to a total of 5 cards, cross our fingers, we get what we need to hopefully communicate with one of these Fear Specters and get it out of here. So at this point in my turn, I could discard some of these cards if I wanted to, and you know what? I really want a better chance of guaranteeing that I get more green, so I am going to actually discard this rapid action card right now at the beginning of my turn. So I only have 2 cards in hand, and we're going to hope to find the ones we need. This one did not help at all. we're going to keep on going here. This also did not help at all. And thankfully, because I discarded that last card, this has got to be green. Come on, come on, come on. No, it's not. It's not. I wonder if there's anything on these cards that will help me. I'll have to take a look around to see if there's any way that I can make this work. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. This is kind of risky, but it's worth it because I'm really trying to get as much contact as I can. I'm gonna go ahead and toss this one here for 1 resource of false, and then this one here, which is another rapid action card, for 2 resources of false. Doesn't matter that they're rapid, but it just matters in terms of ditching cards that I can't put in active slots anyway. This is a total of 3 right there, and that works out pretty good because what it allows me to do is take advantage of this ability to draw another card, hoping it to get some more contact, which would be huge. There we go, saved in the final card. Of course, we could have kept discarding cards to hope to find something, but that works. Now we got to figure out, do we have enough? I think we only need 1 more to actually make that work. So let me just count this up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, we needed all of them. So that worked out perfectly. If that had been a 1 green, we would have been in trouble. So I'm now going to go ahead and take all of this, including these 2 from the active area, and we're going to add this all together for a total of 9 to communicate with one of the entities and remove it from the game. So all these cards are going to go to the discard pile. That was quite a huge discard. We have these 3 remaining in my hand, which we'll talk about in a second. So first, let's head over to the entity, remove it, and put the talk tokens on, I should say first, then remove it, and we'll gain some rewards. So we successfully defeated one of them with 3 of these, thanks to, for every 3 contact, we were able to put one of these tokens on, and we earned every bit of those. There wasn't a single freebie in that one. So we were able to remove one of these off the board. We're down to just a single one. We know we get to gain ether, so we get our 2nd ether, which is awesome for deck building purposes. And we also get to heal away 1 pain, thanks to the ability right underneath there. And we now get to buy some new cards. Let's go ahead and flip 3 cards up and see what we get. So the first one here, oh, this looks wild. It says, I have no bad intentions. It's an instant. That's different. I don't think I've seen an instant yet. It's only 1 ether. Discard any number of the Wrath powers and Wrath cards to give the same number of words to the entity, range unlimited. This could be huge. So that's a really good one. And if it goes in our hand right when we buy it, that could be really nice. Second card off the top here is the Restoring. And this one is only in range 1 from water. Well, look at that. That works out pretty good. We have water right here, and I guess we are within range 1, so that would work. This is an instant. Gain 1 power. Oh, that's really cool. So that would be a way of getting a power without having to actually discard 5 cards of 1 color to get a power, which is much more difficult to do in the middle of all of this insanity. So this could be really good, and gains us a power guaranteed. We'll have that forever going forward, which is pretty sweet. So that maybe actually outranks it based on just how perfect that sits and the fact I can actually afford that. And the third one is, oh, you've got to be kidding me. That's the Poison Thorn again. This is, and again, I did shuffle this from the last time too. So that was the crazy expensive one from the last time, but I still can't afford it. So it's going to be shuffled back into the deck. So at the end of the day, it's one or the other in terms of these 2. I really like the Restoring. It's perfect timing right now to do this, and I can actually put this in my hand. So only in range 1 from water, which is where I am right now. It's so awesome. So I'm going to put this in my hand, and I can use it literally right now to gain that power, and we'll shuffle I Have No Bad Intentions. Even though that's a really great one, this power one's really going to be handy later on, I think. So as you can see, I'm going to spend 2 ether right here. So we have no more ether remaining, unfortunately. And then down here, we've got all these cards still in the active slot. So we've got 2 pain to deal with, but we still have a number of cards in our hand, and we still have 1 entity left to take out. So how can we work our way towards doing this? Well, first off, we're definitely going to want to go ahead and use the Restoring right now. It's instant, and we're going to go ahead. Now, first it has to be in an active slot, so we place it down here. Then right here it says gain 1 of those powers. So we're going to take one of these tokens for the very first time. We've gained a power token. This is a token that I'm going to sit right here, and it's flippable and exhaustible every turn. That's what's so amazing about it. It's a free resource all the time. Even if we don't get those yellow cards for movement, we're going to have that to use, which is great. The restoring card is amazing from the standpoint that I can use this again in the future. Of course, I have to be in range 1 from a lake area or body of water, so that might be tough, but it worked out perfect right now for gaining that power, and it sits right here. Plus, I can use it for resources later. I only have 1 card left in my hand. It's a dodge card, gives me some false. I might as well put it in the active area to use it for its flip ability. Allows me to roll a fate die anytime when I use false resource, just 1 to basically ignore effects or potentially ignore actual pain that I've suffered, which is nice. And I do only have 2 pain on me, so it's not too terrible, but it could I could end up walking out of this with a couple extra pain, but I did pretty good so far. So I think that's where I'm going to stop my turn right now, and then we're going to head over to the entity's turn. So the entity, based on the turn counter card, has an ability on that turn counter card. It says additional movement roll before entity's action, but it's already in my space, so that's not going to happen. So it's going to go ahead and roll the move die right now, which is not going to do either because it's again in my space. This is straight off the AI card, but then it says each character in range 1 is going to suffer a pain. So right now I'm going to suffer an additional pain. Now I can take into account this dodge card that I have, which says I can flip it at any time in order to use 1 false. So I'd have to burn some false to use it, which means I'd have to get rid of my analysis. I don't really want to do that because I might need my analysis to kill this thing if I can get 6 in the next draw, which is pretty risky but possible. So I'm going to actually take the pain and just keep on trucking because we're not doing all that bad that way. So that is going to end the round, and now we're going to go ahead and flip the next turn counter card, or I should say remove the next turn counter card and find out what's coming next at us. This is always the fun part. What could possibly be underneath? Oh, of course, the last turn order card is going to be a nice guessing game for us. All right, so let's go ahead and draw up 5 cards and hope we get what we need to actually kill this thing. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this up. First one is very long hands. This is not something that we need. We don't need more of that false, that's for sure. Oh no, so we might just be looking to run away. This might actually be good for us to just run to the exit. So we're going to continue pulling here. We have 2 more cards to go. Oh, now we're starting to get all of our combat here, so something could come out of this. Oh no, it doesn't look like it. It looks like the best option for us based on the cards that we have is probably going to be to run. Just taking a quick look here. It says you may use your contact as Wrath during this turn. Oh, that's okay. So I could potentially use this 2 contact right here as Wrath, and that would give me a total of 5, which is pretty close to what I need to kill it. That could be doable. We might be able to make this work with a pretty interesting hand here. So maybe let's try to actually kill it instead of running away. So what I'm going to do is I have these 3 cards right here. I do want to, if I could unflip this specialist card, that'd be fantastic, but I have to get rid of this to do it, which I don't want to do because I think this is, it's for 2. Okay, well, that's not bad. I guess it converts it really at the end of the day, which isn't the worst. And then I'd have a total of 5 in hand. Yeah, we could do that. That actually wouldn't be all that bad of an idea. So let's go ahead and actually use the restoring card. We'll discard this one. And this can allow us to unflip. And again, the only reason I can do this is not because it's here. This is a flip card. You don't get this ability and to use it because it's here. You only get to use this ability. It states right on it. If you can see this rule in the chest area, you can perform this action. So unflip 1 of your active cards, and this happens to be one of them. So I'm going to flip this one back up. So now I have regrouping. This is also really good because I can potentially draw cards if I can get some good ones in there, which I can, because I can now put Memory of in here, as well as Peeving from my hand for a total of 5 cards in the active row. All right, so we got everything staged here. I also brought down the actual false token, as well as we just put Peeving and Memory of in this active area. We're trying to get enough combat, because combat's the one it's easiest for us because we have analysis, which gives us the extra injury when we do 2 injuries that we saw used before. But in my hand currently, I only have 3 cards and they're all for false. So we might be exchanging some of those to try to get random draws from the deck, searching for what we need. But first, before we burn all those cards away, because we might need them to actually use our ghost ability to get the heck out of here, We might instead actually go ahead and just try to use this regrouping ability to see if it pans out, because we have 3 red cards in here. I can draw 3 from the top and we might get what we need. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We get to draw first. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw the 3 cards at the top of the deck. Hey, look at that, we got the 2, so that's good. Now the only thing I'm worried about here is that this could potentially flip back over, meaning that this would be a moot point. So we need a lot more red. Or that works too, because there's options with that one, so that's not bad. Come on. Oh, the nice. Okay, so we got a whole bunch there. I think that's, ooh. Is that enough? I think that would be enough. 6. Yeah, that would be enough. That'd be 1 more than what we need, so it's actually pretty good. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and roll the fate die and hope that we don't land a 1 through 4. We're looking for a 5 or 6. Oof. So we got hit by it. So that is going to actually have this card flip, which means we lose 2 of our wrath. We also take a wound, or we take a pain, I should say. But we do have dodge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm supposed to take this pain right now, but instead, right now I'm going to use any time to flip this card. I'm going to spend my token for fate, and it's going to allow me to roll the fate die. And when I roll it, if I get 1 or 2, there's no effect. In other words, I still get the pain hitting me. But if I get a 3 to 4, I get to ignore the number of cards that are yellow in my area here, or false, I should say. And, you know, that much pain that I just suffered. So really just 1 in the end for me right now. So I'm going to try to roll this and get a 3 through 6. There we go, that works. So the card worked perfectly. I do have to flip it over, but I don't get the pain that I just received because it's a do any time type situation. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this card over. So that means I can't use it for its resources either. So this card is kind of out of there, but that's okay because things still worked out for me. So now what I can do is I can come in here, grab all of the wrath that I just picked up, and I can spend, let's think about this. Let's do, yeah, I don't think there's any way for me to gain anything else. In order to get another ether, I have to discard 7 cards. Could be doable. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go like this. This will give us 5. So I'll be discarding these for the 5 resources there. This is 6. So that is enough damage to actually get rid of the entity. So let's deal with that first. So we're lucky in that we'll never get to see what this random thing would have done to us, thankfully. So we can just remove this because there won't be any more of them, as we've taken them all out successfully and are still currently in a turn. So now we have to gain something. We're going to get our ether, thanks to taking out that particular one, which will help us out later on. So we'll put that right here. And we also get to heal 1 of our pain away, which is nice. So one of the ones we just received earlier. So we're down to 2, and we get to buy some cards. Let's draw 3 action cards and see if we can purchase anything for the 1 ether. Of course, the cards we just used for that attack are going to go back to the discard pile. They are gone. And the 3 new action cards we have here is Eternal Riddle, 2 false and 1 pain to add a turn. That's kind of cool. So you actually add turns to your game. Find the pattern. This is 3 contact. We get to mark it. It's a passive ability. Unmark and discard this card anytime to draw that many green active cards. Pretty cool. That could be really useful as well. And the dark side. Ooh, this looks cool. Instant. Exchange any number of your powers for wrath powers. That's really good. That's really good. Now, it only works well if I really want to start changing my false powers over to wrath based on my deck mechanisms I've been kind of building towards with that card I got earlier. But you can also go ahead and just flat out buy power tokens by discarding 5 cards of 1 color. So this could still be pretty good, being able to exchange them and change them to wrath at any point in time. So that's a 1, this is a 1, and this is a 1. So they're all 1. Which is really nice, but also really tough to decide. So getting an extra turn is pretty handy, although I haven't run into any problems with that yet, although I came super close to missing out on all 3 of these guys during this one. Find a pattern. I have cards like it. I really like the dark side. It's just so much combat. And I think with the analysis card that I have now, this is really going to help me when I'm like digging around for combat. So I'm going to take the dark side. This is going to go in my hand. and I'm going to pay that 1 ether to take that card. And these cards are going to go back to the action deck, which I'll shuffle in a bit. So my options are certainly limited here at the end of my turn, and I'm trying to see if I could find a way to get more ether or more power tokens. So to get a power token, I have to discard 5 cards of one color. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of one color. This one here is not considered of one of those colors. So I have 4 of the yellow cards. I need 1 more. The only way to potentially generate that, luckily, is if I spend the dark side for its 3 resources to draw a card and I get lucky. So that's probably my only option that I could try. The other thing that I could gun for, but I think I'm short on, is discarding 7 cards total and or powers included in that to gain an ether. So I could do it if I ditched my power token, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards right now. And technically this would make 7 with the power token to gain an ether. But I really don't want to ditch a power token for an ether. I mean, yes, building your deck's nice, but I kind of like having that token there, and it's, I don't know, I think I'm going to be able to make use of it in the future. So I might just, take the risk and see if I can convert this into yellow. So wish me luck. This is probably not going to pan out, but it's worth a shot. So here we go, and I don't think, just before I do this, there's anything else I can do. This is for attacking. This is for discarding to draw X amount of cards. That doesn't really help me actually either, because I'd be ditching some of the types of cards that I need in order to do it. So no. So yeah, I'm just going to spend it for the 3 resources. Hope it's yellow. It is not. So we don't get lucky enough there. So because I've killed everything that is there, that is going to end the random encounter, because you either succeed by taking out all of the entities by the end of your turn, or you either fail because time runs out, or you just try to escape by spending, in this case, 8 false, and you just run away from the encounter at any point in time, but you do take pain on the way out. And so I'm not going to be taking pain because I successfully killed all the entities here, but now we just go back to, we get pulled out of this dream world, this random encounter, back into the world map where we currently were before. So it's important to note that everything in your active area stays as is. Everything that's in your hand is going to get shuffled back into your chest deck in the center, but all the discarded cards currently stay where they're at. So we're going to shuffle these all up, and of course this actual power token resets at the beginning of every single turn, so that will become available again. But that's essentially it. You just do exactly that, and we're going to go ahead and remove this random encounter map, place the world map, and continue our journey towards the library. And we are back on the world map. We're going to continue our journey forward. You can see where we currently came back in on is where we had left the random encounter here. We're trying to get over here to the underground library. We can go in 2 directions. We can go here to a rest area, but you can see it kind of forces you to trail off over here, which would be a lot longer of a journey, or we go through another random encounter as we try to speed our way towards the library. So I'm going to head towards that random encounter, but guess what? We do have the blue card that I never used the first time around on purpose, so you guys could actually see and potentially see how a random encounter works. But we can use the blue car after we draw this random encounter to try to get away from it if we don't like it. So first off, we get to draw it and take a look and see what it is. So let's do exactly that. 1 random encounter. Look at this. This is called Rustle and Shadow. Who is that? We can sneak out. Each character flips 1 active card or resolve next encounter. Now, based on the wisdom card that we have called Signs, we have all these different things we're trying to find in different tiles and inside the world map and inside random encounters. So I'm always looking for them, but this doesn't match anything that I'm seeing here. And there's no hidden numbers that I can see either, because you're always checking to see if there happens to be numbers you can make out to potentially go into those secret decks. This is strictly something that appears to be just each character flips 1 active card or resolve next encounter. Now, again, we could use the blue card here, but I really would hate to lose the blue card over such an easy encounter. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to suck it up and flip over Analysis. Now, what you might be wondering is what happens in a situation where you actually have a marker on a card and it gets flipped over. Guess what? You don't lose the marker. It just gets flipped over and you can't use the passive ability, but the cost you've paid already to get it into place still stays. So we just need to find a way to flip it back up. And we know that our specialist ability is spend 2 contact and we can flip it back up. So that is the reason why I think that's an easy and very safe choice to make. So we will continue our journey to the prison. Now the prison has no effect whatsoever unless a game element gives it an effect. So we can just take it as a space. It doesn't have anything forced upon us. But the next space, depending on where we go, could. So we have two ways to get to the current scene. We could actually go through 2 more random encounters, which sounds extremely dangerous and could potentially get us really killed. But it could be fun at the same time if we tried to drive our car straight through all that. And then the last one here says move to any red space, and that's actually one that's optional. But really you just got to get through those 2. Or we go the other way. This one says flip 1 card, and then if we go, we'd be forced actually to go up here to a... Oh, that would actually take us to one of those fate cards, which is required. Then we come back down here and flip a card and then go in. So really it just causes us to flip all of our cards over. Now what's fantastic about that route going straight up is if you don't have any cards to flip, you don't have to flip any. And currently I have 3 cards in my player area that are all face down in my active zone, so I have nothing else left to flip. So that's exactly the route I want to take right now. It just makes sense for me. So I'm going to go ahead and head up here to flip 1 card, which I don't have to do. The arrow forces me to go up this way, which then forces me to have to go ahead and pull a fate card. So we'll see what fate is coming at us here. So we're going to pick up a card, and we have found Home Sweet Home. Now this is awesome. I was not expecting this to be a positive thing at all. I was expecting there to be a ghost there or something, but it literally is Home Sweet Home. We're going to kick our feet up by the fire, take a little bit of a rest here, and it literally says on the card, players may reshuffle their decks. For each discarded power, the character may heal 1, or change 1 item, or change your mask. Like, that's really, really cool. Now, the other thing that's even cooler than that is I took a look at this particular fate card and noticed that this actually matches one of the wisdom signs. This one right here for the fire. So I'm going to be able to flip this over right now, and we're going to do that and see what we get. We got ourselves an ether and a new item. So the top card off the item deck gives us a train ticket. That's interesting. So this thing says remove, use on the world map to move from one railway station to other chosen railway station without resolving the train scene. That's kind of cool. So as of right now, we don't really need this, but to get ourselves from one side of the map to the other quickly, especially after going through the next scene, could be massive. It could save us a ton of time. So this is a huge, huge pickup for us. This is an item card, so we can actually put this in our storage area if we don't want to actually equip it as part of our 3 items that we have right now, which probably makes the most sense. But we do have a whole bunch of options here in terms of this Home Sweet Home situation, but we also want to grab that ether as well, which I'll place, which is fantastic. So glad I spotted that. We've gained 2 ether so far, a key and a new item from those wisdom cards. All right, we're all rested up. You can see the chest area is fully shuffled. Our deck is getting larger than it used to be for sure. We have 3 action cards all face down thanks to using them in the previous random encounter, and then this one being forced upon us to flip. And we have nothing left to flip going forward. The other part of this Home Sweet Home card says that for each discarded power token, if we decide to discard this power token, it gives us the ability to either heal 1, we could take away a pain, which is nice, or change 1 item out from the 3 we have, or change mask. And honestly, I'm going to stick with the mask I have. I don't need to change out my items. I'm quite happy with the blue car, strategic plan, and flashlight, especially seeing as we're going to go into a scene soon. So I'll be using probably all of them except for the car. I guess the car is the only one that I could potentially ditch, but for me, discarding a power token that gives me a free resource is just too good to hold on to. I got to hold on to that. I don't even know if I'll get another one in the near future. So regardless, that fate was fantastic. So back to the world map as we continue our journey towards the library. So the next stage is going to be following the yellow arrow down here to flip 1 card, which we know we can't do because all of our cards are flipped. And then we're going to go ahead and follow the arrow again to the scene, which is the underground library, which we have successfully arrived at after taking on a random encounter, some fate, flipping cards, finding our home, finding some hidden wisdom signs as well. And now we've landed at the library. And this is where we're going to end part number 3. In part number 4, coming up after this, we're going to set up the library and dive straight in. At this particular point, you guys have a better understanding of the core rules, at least within the prototype, in terms of seeing random encounters, fate cards, scenes. So in terms of rules instructions, those are going to start to drop off completely in the next part as we really just start churning through the gameplay. So I can't wait to see what the library has in store for us. I think we're set up quite well going in with only 2 pain, and hopefully we can get rid of it if we get lucky and come out the other side with a key. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. Can't wait to continue the journey, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. As always, keep on rolling solo.